Syria's map is changing again, primarily driven by the insurgent group HTS, which has launched a significant offensive against government forces, capturing Aleppo and surrounding areas. HTS was seeking to expand its territorial control from its stronghold in Idlib, which is the last major opposition bastion. This escalation didn't trigger a counteroffensive from the Syrian government near key cities like Hama. These moves signal a potential resurgence of the high-intensity warfare that characterized earlier years of the conflict. The Syrian government under President Bashar al-Assad was primarily focusing on regaining control over rebel-held territories, but his family left the country. The recent HTS offensives have undermined the regime's authority, particularly in northern Syria, making territorial consolidation a top priority. Assad's forces rely heavily on support from Russia and Iran, whose military and financial backing have been crucial in sustaining the regime throughout the conflict. However, the government faces significant challenges, including depleted resources, economic collapse, and growing discontent within its own population. International sanctions further isolate the Assad regime, hindering its ability to secure reconstruction funds and diplomatic recognition. Despite these hurdles, until this year, Assad's government remained resilient, leveraging its alliances with Iran and Russia to maintain its grip on power. For Iran, Syria is a linchpin in its regional strategy, serving as a critical link in the so-called axis of resistance against Israel and Western influence. Tehran has invested heavily in supporting Assad, deploying allied militias like Hezbollah and providing financial and military assistance. However, Iran faces increasing challenges, including heightened Israeli airstrikes, targeting its assets in Syria, and strained resources due to domestic unrest and international sanctions. Additionally, Iran's broader influence in the region is under pressure, as Turkey's involvement in Syria and Israel's aggressive stance complicate its strategic calculations. Nonetheless, Iran began stopping its commitment to its objectives in Syria, viewing its involvement as unnecessary to maintaining its regional power and countering its adversaries. Russia's role in Syria is multifaceted. Since intervening in 2015, Moscow has been a key ally of the Assad regime, providing air support, weapons, and diplomatic backing. Russia's military presence in Syria, particularly its bases in Tartus and Latakia, underscores its strategic interests in the Mediterranean and the broader Middle East. However, Russia's involvement is increasingly challenged by its ongoing war in Ukraine, which diverts resources and attention. Economic sanctions and international criticism also complicate Moscow's position, limiting its ability to sustain long-term engagement in Syria. Despite these challenges, Russia continues to support Assad, seeing its presence in Syria as vital to its regional influence and as a counterbalance to Western power. Turkey plays a critical and controversial role in the Syrian conflict. Ankara has consistently opposed the Assad regime, providing support to various rebel groups, including HTS. Turkey's primary concern is the Kurdish question. It views the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces as a direct threat to its territorial integrity. To counter this, Turkey has conducted numerous military operations in northern Syria, aiming to establish safe zones and weaken Kurdish autonomy. However, Turkey's involvement is not without challenges. Its relations with key actors, including Russia, Iran, and the United States, are fraught with tension, complicating its ability to achieve its objectives. Domestically, Turkey faces growing criticism over its handling of the Syrian refugee crisis, with millions of Syrians residing in the country under increasingly precarious conditions. Ankara's balancing act in Syria reflects its broader struggle to assert its influence while managing complex geopolitical and domestic pressures. Israel's involvement in Syria is primarily driven by security concerns, particularly regarding Iranian and Hezbollah activities near its borders. Israel has conducted frequent airstrikes targeting Iranian installations and weapons transfers in Syria, aiming to disrupt Tehran's efforts to arm its proxies. These strikes are part of Israel's broader strategy to counter Iranian influence in the region, but they also risk escalating tensions with both Iran and Syria. Israel's actions in Syria are complicated by its need to navigate relationships with other regional players, including Russia, which maintains a significant military presence in the country. Despite these challenges, Israel remains committed to its objectives, viewing its operations in Syria as essential to safeguarding its national security. The interplay of these actors has made the Syrian conflict a proxy battleground where competing interests often overshadow the plight of the Syrian people. The renewed fighting between HTS and government forces highlights the persistent volatility of the situation and the difficulty of achieving a lasting resolution. The international community faces significant obstacles in addressing the crisis, from providing humanitarian aid to facilitating political negotiations. While various peace initiatives have been proposed, the deep divisions among the warring parties and their international backers have stymied progress. The humanitarian toll is staggering. Over 15 million Syrians within the country require urgent assistance, including millions suffering from food insecurity and inadequate access to healthcare. More than 7 million are internally displaced, and millions more have fled to neighboring countries like Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. The 2023 earthquake further devastated the region, leaving countless families homeless and compounding an already dire situation. Economic conditions are equally bleak, with inflation at nearly 90% and 85% of families unable to meet basic needs. Critical infrastructure, including schools, hospitals, and water systems, has been decimated, leaving the majority of Syrians without access to essential services. Amid these challenges, the international community continues to struggle to provide adequate aid due to restricted access and limited funding. In conclusion, the Syrian crisis continues to evolve, marked by renewed violence, a worsening humanitarian situation, and complex geopolitical dynamics. The strategies and challenges faced by the Syrian government, Iran, Russia, Turkey, and Israel illustrate the multifaceted nature of the conflict, where local, regional, and international interests intersect. As the conflict enters its 14th year, the prospects for peace remain uncertain, with the lives of millions of Syrians hanging in the balance. Addressing this crisis requires a concerted effort from the international community to prioritize humanitarian needs, support conflict resolution, and hold accountable those responsible for perpetuating the violence. Only through such efforts can Syria hope to achieve stability and rebuild after years of devastating war. Bashar al-Assad's political fate seems to remain intertwined with the outcome of Syria's ongoing conflict and the support of his international allies. While he has managed to retain power through the backing of Russia and Iran, his regime is absolutely economically weakened and diplomatically isolated, with limited legitimacy outside loyalist-held areas.